Hello the internet, I'm Guy Kestevan and I've been bitching about bikes professionally for nearly 28 years. And today I'm going to talk you through the tech details on the new Voodoo Canzo. 1,400 quid's worth. And I do mean that, it is definitely worth 1,400 quid of your mountain biking money. So why am I saying that, and what are the details that I think you'll be surprised about when we start looking up close at this new 140mm 20mm twin 29er all-round trail bike from the big orange bike shop. Right, so alloy frame, as you'd expect from this price, but always nice to see a metal head badge, giving a bit of class there on the front. You've got internal cable routing, which is really, really rare at this price point, and it's really good. It's proper clamped. So these cables aren't going anywhere, and they're even foam sheathed inside. So it's actually a super quiet ride. And it's kind of weird how much that really affects how you feel about the ride. If your bike is quiet, it feels way more composed, way more controlled. And it's almost like if you've ever ridden in a full face helmet, it's just that kind of damped feeling. Just that calmness really informs the ride. And even when it was getting super rowdy in the live ride, this is a really, really quiet bike overall. And you can see down on the exit port there where I've fitted this dropper post cable in, you just unbolt that, slide it through the down tube, and then it clamps again there. So again, really quiet, in position, no paint scuff, all nicely sorted out. You've got a proper rocker linkage there. You've got, it's a proper FSR, horse link 4-bar as well, which means the back wheel, if you're new to all the suspension stuff, if you're buying a budget bike, you might be, basically that means that the designers can pretty much make the back wheel track in the arc they want, depending on the different shapes they put in. But for now, all you really need to know is that creates a really neutral, well-behaved suspension system that doesn't get massively hung up if you're pedaling hard, but also is really, really smooth in terms of tracking the ground. One of the most proven and popular suspension systems since, the early 1990s. So they've really gone with a tried and tested formula here. But you're also getting a lot of nice detailing here. You're getting a big chainstay yoke there. That's keeps the bike. You can see it's forged aluminium, and then you've got the routing for the rear cable for the gears there. That keeps everything nice and quiet. You've got chain slap protection, top and bottom. Again, if you're really banging along the trail, that stops the chain making a right racket and knocking the paint off. And then see these little tabs here? That means you can fit a chain guide. So that's a roller and sort of plate system you might see on downhill bikes and enduro bikes, where that stops the chain from jumping off. But to be honest, I had zero problems with the chain jumping off on this bike anyway. And then moving to here, you've got a RockShox Deluxe Select shock. So really good quality shock. You'll often find on budget bikes, you'll find a shock from like Suntour or X-Fusion. And while they really try, and they might have more features like a lockout and stuff like that, you just can't beat RockShox at this price for just consistent reliability. And also, this feels really, really great. Like I say, done a live ride already, and so go check that out to see just how smooth and composed. There's lots of sort of look back. I'll put a little clip in here, but there's lots of shock look back footage on that live ride view where you can see this back end is really, really working superbly to keep that back wheel on the ground, to keep it braking well, and to keep it driving forwards when you get on the gas. Other features you should know about, that's what they call a universal derailleur hanger. Again, a real bonus on a bike at this price. You'll normally find like a proprietary piece of metal to hold the rear mech on there. Well, this is what they call the derailleur hanger, but this is a new SRAM pioneered idea where basically all bikes use this same universal derailleur hanger. So it means it's a lot easier to find replacements for out in the wilds, and you're more likely to get your bike up and running again. You won't need to hunt around to like a Voodoo specific hanger from a Halfords or something. You just go into a shop, go, I need a new universal derailleur hanger, and they'll be able to sort you out. And the idea with that is if the rear mech takes a big clunk, that little bit gives up the ghost. That little section in there that holds it onto the frame gives up the ghost, rather than needing a whole new derailleur or a whole new frame. So thoroughly good and bang up to date innovation there from Voodoo on this bike. And then moving up here, you can see you've got plenty of space in the frame for a bottle cage, as large as you like. And You've got, I mean, there's no accessory mounts up there, but you have got space for strap-on inner tube, that kind of thing. But overall, you can look, I mean, really nicely finished welding on there. There's no awkward, bird poo type incidents going on with the welding. You've got, even on the seat collar there, you've got a little brass insert in it, so it closes nice and simply and nice and smoothly. That's not going to wear out and get loose over time. And again, really well sized for the dropper post as well. So again, no bagginess, no waggle. The whole bike is a really, really nicely put together piece of engineering. And again, the geometry on this new Canzo is right out of the performance numbers playbook that you'll find even the biggest brand name superbikes using. So 65-degree head tube, 478mm reach on this large bike, at 338mm bottom bracket drop, so a nice balance between still being able to get your cranks pedaling over rough terrain, but getting you low enough so you feel confident and secure on the bike through corners. You've got a 77.5-degree effective seat tube. As you see, it actually leans back more than that because it's got a curve in it, but the idea behind that is it's relatively steep. If you haven't bought a new mountain bike for a while, you'll go, crikey, that's steep, but because it pushes your saddle further forwards, it puts you in a better position for climbing and kind of offsets that longer top tube on the frame there. And then on the back end, quite a short 435mm rear end on this bike, so keeps it nice and lively and agile in terms of the handling. So you've got short back end, longer front end, and that means the bike feels a little bit more nippy, tight around tight corners. It's more likely to get the front of the bike up if you're wheeling or manualing it. And yeah, the whole bike just feels a little bit handier than one with a longer rear end and therefore a longer wheelbase. The only thing I would say, 460mm seat tube length on this means you haven't got a huge amount of room to play with on seat post drop. You can see there's a 150mm seat post. There's not a huge amount of collar on there, so that's potentially something to bear in mind if you're upgrading, but you still could get a 170mm drop in there, which will be fine for most people. And it also comes in small, medium and large. There's no extra small and no extra large options in this Canzo range at the moment, unfortunately. So you've got a really well-made frame with excellent all-round geometry on it. But let's have a look at the spec, because this is the entry-level model, so there are been some compromises made compared to the Pro bike, which comes in at 1,800 quid. Starting off, you've got RockShox 35 fork, and as you can see from these tops, there's no air pressure valve on there, so it's a coil fork. And it's a progressively wound coil spring in there. By that, it means there's a long coil spring. Well, it's actually in the other side, but it doesn't really matter. It gets firmer the further you push through the travel. So I found, as a relatively light rider, I was struggling to get full travel on it if you've watched the live ride review. But if you're about 90 kilos, this is going to be absolutely spot on spring rate for you. And it's also going to give you plenty of support. If you're into sending the big stuff, that progressive coil spring is going to give you a lot of support when you're really hammering this bike. Plus, you don't have to worry about air leaks or setting the pressure to suit yourself. I mean, yeah, obviously you lose some adjustability because you can't set the pressure to suit yourself. But on the other hand, it's very much a fit and forget fork. And the other thing I'd say is because you haven't got air seals slowing the movement of the fork down, creating drag, it is incredibly supple. The 100mm or so I was getting out of this fork, super supple, and that really helps with the traction from the front end and comfort and control as well. But one thing I would say, because it's got coil springs in there, because there's steel legs on the fork, makes it very durable. But at 2,870 grams, this is nearly as heavy as RockShox's full boxer downhill fork. So not a light fork, but a very smooth fit and forget fork on the front. And you're getting a bolt-through axle as standard. So you've got basically all the standard industry sizing if you want to upgrade that fork at a later point. And you have got rebound adjust. You've got a little dial down there which controls how fast the fork springs back after a big impact. So you've got proper damping on the fork. It's not just a pogo stick. It's actually a surprisingly controlled fork that I'm having a lot of fun riding on Oakley Moor in that live ride review. Moving up to the bars, you've got a 45mm stem on a 780mm wide bar, and they're relatively narrow diameter, so 31.8mm, which gives a little bit more flex, a little bit more comfort. Textured lock-on grips here, so it's got a collar on the inside so it won't slip around when it's wet, and a little bit of a padded feel on the bar there, and a little knurled end on there to kind of keep your hand in place. Not going to lie, you might want to upgrade those. They're a little bit firm, so you might want a more comfortable grip on there. But, you know, certainly for the grips you could have got on this bike at such a competitive price point, not bad at all. And then we move on to braking. Now, to be fair, these are pretty much the basic Shimano mountain bike brake. It's the 201, which means you've got just a 2-piston caliper on the brake there, so they're not as powerful as the 401 brake, and I'd say braking is adequate. It was perfectly all right, you know, didn't scare the bejesus out of me up on the moor when I was live riding this bike. But you might, if you want extra braking, the cheapest way to do it would be to upsize that front rotor to a 200mm. But it'll do for now, is basically what we're saying. Not a ton of feel, slightly wooden, but Shimano are always super reliable in terms of their basic brakes. And again, spares easy to find, runs on mineral oil, not DOT fluid, so there's nothing toxic going on in your pipes. And just a really easy, reliable brake to live with, if not the most touchy-feely or powerful option out there. In terms of wheels, you've got an unbranded, well, it's Voodoo branded, but it's 30mm internal and it's tubeless ready. So that means if you add some valves to it, some tubeless valves, or get your shop to do it for you, then you can run these tyres without inner tubes, which gives you a little bit more survivability, because then you can run sealant inside, and also means the tyre's less likely to get crushed against the rim and puncture that way when you're really hauling on through rocky terrain. And you're getting Maxxis, one of the best known brands in mountain bike tyres. A lot of the premium brands and a lot of top racers use them, and the Forecaster is a really, really good all-round, pretty fast rolling, but decent grip in most conditions. You know, it's just a really good all-round, efficient, effective tyre. This is the slightly cheaper, harder compound, and it's a wire bead as well, so that's a little bit heavier than the standard tyre. But on the plus side, although it means it won't grip as much as a more expensive Forecaster, it will last significantly longer if you're using this on bike to work or just doing road mileage on it during the week and then hitting the trails on the weekend. And it's 29 wheels, front and rear, which again makes it a very fast rolling, sort of efficient riding bike compared to what they call mullet, which is a smaller back reel on the rear. And again, it's a Forecaster tyre again. So nice, easy, efficient rolling tyres with decent all year round all-terrain grip. And then in terms of hubs, you've got basic seal cartridge bearing hubs, so you'll just have to keep an eye on those. Once the bearings start to get a bit dry or start to rattle, then just replace the bearings in the hubs. And, you know, as you'd expect on a cost-effective bike like this, it's a plain gauge spoke on there, so just a single thickness all the way through. So these will be relatively heavy wheels, but they're sturdy, they're suitable for the use of the bike, and obviously it gives you a real opportunity to upgrade to a lighter weight alloy wheel and really pep up the ride of this bike. So that is one thing I would say. Bikes at this budget now are pretty heavy because they're running 29 wheels, because you've got things like a relatively strong stout fork. I mean, this is actually an e-bike category fork, and the whole bike is designed to be sent pretty hard. This does weigh in at 16.7 kilos, which is, you know, a lot. So that's certainly a lot more than a hardtail would be, a bike without a rear shock. But that's a lot of that actually comes not from the frame. Some of it will come from the wheels. Quite a lot of it comes from the fork. And then this Shimano Qs, their new super durable drivetrain system, actually accounts for a lot of that weight, particularly in that cassette there. But the bonus on that is it's really, really super durable. It's designed to be very durable. Just keep going and going and going and going. The rear mech's pretty solid, so that'll take a few knocks. And the bearings are surprisingly good quality for such an accessible price point. So this is a very, very sturdy, long-running, just again, it's just a really good fit and forget choice for transmission. And I have to say, the actual shifting on it, I mean, it's only 10-speed, and it's only plastic levers up here. It's not a metal shifter or anything. The actual shifting spot on. Really, really good. There are certainly a lot more expensive systems I've been running recently that don't shift nearly as well as this. And I actually quite like this 1148 tooth spread on there. So not as big as more expensive Shimano or SRAM group sets in terms of that largest cog. But because you haven't got big jumps up onto that gearing, it's actually a smoother progression and feels more natural. And to be honest, once you're in a really big cog, you're probably going to have to get off and push as soon as things get techy because you're just twiddling along. You haven't really got any torque to apply. Whereas that 48 tooth, I'm something of a fan of. So yes, this Shimano Q's adds weight, but I would definitely take that durability over a lighter, flimsier group set that doesn't change as well any time of day. One down spec, it's not a Shimano crank on there. It's a pro wheel if you look at the forging on the back, but at least it's external bottom bracket on there, so that means that's easy to replace. And also because it's a one-piece crank, this axle runs all the way through to the other side. That makes it a little bit stiffer, and it's got a replaceable chainring on there, so when that chainring runs out, when that chainring wears out, then you can just fit another one. But is it no, that is metal. I was just checking my magnet there. That is a steel chainring, so that will probably last a long time anyway. It's just those bearings in the back there that you might need to keep an eye out for. But it's a standard Shimano fitment, so when they wear out, I just go for a Shimano bottom bracket. But obviously, Voodoo are keeping a very, very close eye on pricing on this bike. So there are some areas like the chain set where they will need to save a bit. But at least it isn't what they call a square taper crank on with separate crank arms, which are really heavy and tend not to last as long either because they're much cheaper quality. So not Shimano, which is a bit of a downer, but it could be much worse. And then the big news, if you've watched the live ride review, you'll know this already, but the big news here is that this bike originally came with a fixed seat post. It was going to be sold at £1,400 with a fixed seat post rather than a dropper post, but because of my feedback when they came and talked to me about the bike initially, the good news is they'll be fitting an X-Fusion Manic dropper post to all second batch bikes as standard, and it'll still only cost 1,400 quid. And while they'll be selling the bikes without dropper posts in the shops for £1,350 now, for £50 you can ask to have this 150mm Satori dropper post. It kind of makes me laugh because Sarah's dad, my wife's dad, always goes. He famously came round once and went, "Hey, they had some lovely shirts in Morrison's. They're proper Sabatini." And he was ever so delighted. I mean, nobody's ever heard of Sabatini shirts. I thought she was a tennis player. But no, football player? I don't know. You'll know. I don't really follow tennis or football. But anyway, it kind of reminded me of that you've got this Satori post in there. It's a perfectly adequate dropper. You've got an over-the-bar lever rather than under-bar lever, which isn't the neatest thing, but at least it's metal. And it's got a little barrel adjuster on there for setting it up. And having a dropper post on there, I mean, if you watch the live ride review, you see I kind of cope with it okay, but being able to lower and raise that saddle while you're riding along is just a massive deal in terms of increasing your confidence on the bike, having the saddle where it needs to be for efficient pedaling on the climbs and then dropping it out the way on descent so you can move around on the bike more and you're not less likely to get flung over the bars. It just makes a massive difference. So big thumbs up to Voodoo for realising that they really did need to put a dropper on this bike, and impressively, they've done it without actually increasing the retail price. So still a really, really accessible 1,400 quid bike that is genuinely fully equipped and fully capable of playing with the big boys on some properly spicy trails. So there you go, Voodoo Canzo tech talk around. In summary, brakes are a bit basic, wheels are pretty heavy, fork is very heavy, and if you're a lighter rider, you might struggle to get full travel out of it until you really start hitting stuff hard. But remarkably smooth and controlled is that 35 coil fork. It's really grown on me, and specifically because it's such a supple, comfortable fork over the smaller stuff. So even if you're not getting full travel out of it, still a really, really good fork to start with. Plus, you know, it's the right size and the right fitments to upgrade easily if that's the way you're going. Shimano Qs, I'm a massive fan of that drivetrain in terms of durability. Really like the gear spread on it. 10 speed doesn't really bother me at all because it works and it will continue working for a long time. I can't really speak to how long that bottom bracket's going to last. It's not a Shimano one, so it probably won't last a huge amount of time. But like the wheel bearing hubs, you know, just keep an eye on that and be ready to replace it when it wears out. But massive kudos to them for stepping up and putting a dropper post in the bike as standard from the next batch onwards. That makes a huge difference to the rideability of what is a really well-shaped, really nicely put together and very, very good to ride bike. I mean, genuinely, I was, you know, perhaps understandably nervous about taking a 1,400 quid bike out to chase my mates on far more expensive bikes around some spicy trails, but go watch that live road review and I think you'll be as surprised as I was just how well this bike performed on some proper Yorkshire sort of enduro style trails. And I'm planning, if I can keep onto this bike, I might upgrade some things like the brakes, maybe change the tyres or something. Planning on taking this on some even bigger, more challenging adventures just to see what the Canzo can do. What else do you need to... tyres, they're fine. They're a really good, easy, efficient, fast-rolling tyre, these Forecasters. But, again, if you want a little more grip on the front, maybe consider going to something like a DHF. Or you could have that done for you by trading up to the Voodoo Canzo Pro, which is 400 quid more, but it comes with 4 pot brakes. It comes with Shimano Dior 12 speed, so you're getting upgrading the stop and the go. It comes with a upgraded fork. It's a silo air fork, so more adjustable, lighter, more controlled fork. I don't actually know whether it will be smoother, to be fair, because that is outstandingly smooth. And you get a dropper post on that bike as standard, and it comes in a rather jazzy purple colour. But the basic geometry, the basic fixtures, features, and ride of the bike are otherwise unchanged. Oh, and better quality WTB rims and a Maxxis DHF front tyre and dissector rear. So you're getting a more aggressive, not quite as fast rolling, but grippier tyre spec on there. So either way, whether you want to go with this basic Canzo, which is a proper underdog overperformer, or you want to step up to the Pro, some really, really good options now from Voodoo in their range. I mean, previously the Canzo's always been a bit of a... Well, it hasn't really been a proper trail spec. It's been okay, but I'd have tried to get people to trade up. But then it was a lot cheaper back in the day. But now, this bike, proper performing mountain bike that you can do proper mountain biking on. And like I say, the weight, it's just what it is at this price point these days. So, you know, you're going to struggle to find a lighter bike. You're going to get up to into the mid-2000s and look at something like Specialized Chisel FSR before you start to see those weights coming down to sort of the 14 kilo mark, just because Shimano Qs, coil forks, things like that are just heavy pieces of equipment, but I'd rather have durability over something flimsy and fragile. So that's pretty much it, really. Hope I've covered everything off. If not, there's something you want to ask, then please get busy in the comments and I'll try and answer them there. If I can't answer them, then I'm in touch with the Halfords team who put together the Canzo and Boardman range of bikes, and I'll be reviewing more Boardman bikes shortly, as well as more Voodoos. There's an absolutely excellent Voodoo hardtail that I'm really keen to get my hands on. But massive thanks to you guys for watching. Thanks particularly to my Patreon subscribers who pledge on a monthly basis and they get early exclusive edits as a thank you and they get them ad-free. So if you find the channel helpful and you want to support me on a monthly basis, then please consider Patreon. Click for subscriptions and notifications and give it a thumbs up like so YouTube knows you liked doing it. YouTube knows you like watching it, and then it might share it with more people, which helps the channel grow. I can spend more time doing it, and everybody wins. And also, huge thanks to my industry sponsors who are listed at the end. Those guys support the channel, so if you could support them when you're considering shopping for new mountain bike kit, then, again, everybody wins. But for now, I've been Guy Kestevan on Guy Kes TV, talking about the remarkably can-do Voodoo Canzo. And if you haven't already watched it, go and see just how well this bike rides on properly tasty trails.
We're on them. Switching to guns, Maverick. Woo! Oh yes. I should probably point out at this point that Alphards haven't actually paid those lads up front to go make this bike look this good. It's doing it. All of its own accord. Yes! Hey! Whoa! He's only got, what fork's that, Ollie? 38 factory. Of course he's struggling, poor little lamb. Come on! Woo! I'm not being, I mean, I love an underdog bike, but this is probably one of the better runs I've done down here recently, if you watch my video footage.